Hello and welcome to the Bookcast Club, a podcast for people who love to chat books. I'm Belle and I'm coming to you from Naarm, Melbourne in Australia, and we have Jenny joining us today from Norwich in the UK. Hey Jen.
Hello. Hello. How are you?
I'm good. I'm very excited about today's episode.
Yeah, we're excited. We probably should pre-warn that we're all a little... Me and Belle, bless us, hopefully we're going to get through this episode. But I think I've had COVID. Belle's suffering with migraines and we're just going to plough on through.
There.
We're here.
Yeah.
We messed up the times, which I'm sure everyone's sick of hearing about our absolute inability
Disaster.
to get our timing straight.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've already messed that up tonight.
I was sitting here
this morning for me.
A full hour before Jen was even thinking about it. I'm sitting here at the computer going, let me know when you're ready.
Where is she?
And then I opened my phone and I looked up like my clock apps and I was like, time in London. And I was like, damn, I'm very early.
Yeah. In our defence, our clocks went back last night. So, yeah, it was bound to cause chaos. I woke up and I was like, oh, it's 8 o'clock in the morning, my God. And then my phone was like 7 o'clock. I was like, oh, I see what's happened. Yeah. We should never have planned it for this weekend, basically.
Yeah, it's funny that happens at different times because I think ours was, right at the start of October.
A couple of weeks ago?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I figured yours would
chaos.
Be at the same time. Anyway, we're here. It's fine.
Yeah, just about.
So this week we're diving headfirst into the shadows, from cursed hotels to creepy cinemas, as we hunt for the perfect scary read. So this is our Halloween spooky episode. I feel like Jen and I, we've done this for the last 1 or 2 seasons. I feel like you always do a spooky.
We definitely did it last year. But we've always done a spooky episode. But I feel like us together was probably the first time last year. But I feel like this is going to be a regular feature when me and Belle spend the year trying to read books for this episode. And usually failing miserably. I don't think I've done particularly well. I don't know how you're feeling about your kind of horror reading in the last year.
Oh, I mean, my horror reading in the last week has been pretty good. I feel like...
Well done.
I've read about like 4.5 books, 4 3/4 books. I've got like a little bit of the last one to finish tonight that I'd sort of set out to finish before the podcast. I didn't quite get there, but it's a little bit hard because I've been trying to only read them either at night or we had quite a few moody days recently, so it's been quite good for the scary reads, but I don't want to skew it towards like not being scary if I'm reading it and it's like sunshine outside and it's like beautiful weather, because that takes away from the scariness of it compared to if you're like reading it in the quiet, like at night you're the only one awake. And I think that's a perfect setup.
We spoke about this, didn't we, in our first episode, that you're coming into summer. So, yeah, your atmosphere. You're needing to create more of an atmosphere for your horror reading.
Definitely.
But yeah, well done. Sounds like you've nailed it in the last week.
The last week's really, we've had some grim weather. We've had some really like grey days and it's got a bit cold again. And then today it was thunderstorming like all day. So, yeah, it's been a really good day for pulling it all together.
Excellent. How are we going to tackle this? We were going to do some recent reads.
Yeah, I think, if we each talk about a couple of recent reads, ones that we were hoping to be scary and see how they measured up.
See how we got on. Yes. Yeah, we were going to do recent reads. I think we're going to tackle our TBR, what we might have up next. We're going to do some like quick recommendations based on genre. I did have to look up the different horror tropes. You think I might know them, but I clearly don't.
Yeah,
we did have to rely on ChatGPT to throw a few of those at us. I was like, oh yeah, they kind of just read stuff naive to like them slotting into a particular theme, I guess. So yeah, we'll do some quick fire suggestions for those. And I think we've both got some movie/TV recommendations. I've said before on this podcast, I watch way more horror than I read. Me and my sister watch a horror film every single weekend together. So I'm going to just share some of my favourite recent films that I have seen. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm always excited for this episode.
Me too. Okay.
Yes, so this is my most recent horror read. It's one of those ones that now I've read it. I mean, we were going to say how scary we expected them to be. I thought this one, on a scale of scariness, might have been like a 6 or a 7. And it was way more near a 1. 1 or a 2.
Oh, no.
So, the book I'm talking about is Hungerstone by Kat Dunn, which is a retelling of Camilla, which I absolutely love. I've talked about that book on here a lot. I can never remember the guy's name. Sheridan Lefanu. I don't know where he's from. I feel like he's American. That book was written pre-Dracula. It's said to be one of the big influences on Dracula. And it's about Camilla, who is found by this wealthy aristocratic family in it's not a car crash because they didn't have cars, a carriage crash near their home, and they take her into her home, and she turns out to be a vampire. And that's the story of Camilla. And it has those, I don't know if it's supposed to be, it's taken as like the first kind of lesbian vampire novel, but I don't know how literary that was meant to be taken in a book that was written in 1871. Maybe, I don't know, maybe a man might have been putting in some undertones of sapphic romance. I have no idea. But that's where the whole sort of lesbian vampire trope came from, was Camilla. And I loved that book. And there's moments in that book that I found, I don't know if I found them scary, but like visceral in their descriptions. Like they at one point near the end of the book, they find her coffin and you know, they kill her like you'd kill a vampire. So a retelling of it, I think that's more along the lines of what I was expecting.
Mm.
Whereas this one follows Lenore and her husband Henry, who moved to Nethershore Hall. And it's set in, well, I think they're in the Peak District, but he definitely is like a Sheffield steel magnate. He like owns one of the factories, I guess. So it has that sort of plot line. But they move to this kind of slightly decrepit old house, and Lenore, as the housewife, is, you know, lady of the house, is kind of tasked with doing up the house, and that's what she's doing. And he's going to host a big hunting party. He's like of new money, and there's a lot of trying to like fit in with that like aristocratic crowd. And the same sort of storyline is followed, isn't that they find Camilla's crashed carriage on the way home, and they take her into the house, and she kind of just never leaves. And the whole thing is this brooding, tense relationship between Camilla and Lenore that does, you know, what's that sort of sapphic romance relationship type thing. It's not very romantic. So in that sense, it followed the same plot line, but then I would say it's very much more an historical fiction book than, it's got the atmosphere, it's got the that brooding relationship that they have, but it never goes any further than that, I'd say. And at one point Camilla disappears for like 2/3 of the book, and she's such a good character in it that it felt like a big hole in the book for me. And I couldn't wait for her to get back. And you're left with this kind of slightly meandering historical fiction plotline, is what I felt. The ending's amazing when she reappears. It's totally worth it. And I think I gave it 4 out of 5. So I did enjoy it. On the scare scale, it's not there.
Mm.
So I'm talking about it in our horror episode just because I've read it recently and I was expecting it to be scary. But it's not. So I'd say I would say read the original first. Like, the original's amazing. I love it. If you want a book that's creepy and atmospheric, like it's a good one for this time of year, then that would be a good book to read. But it's very much more historical fiction with a creepy, spooky atmosphere. In terms of actual horror, it's on the low end. but ultimately disappointed in a 4-star read, which is a bit weird to say.
Okay, well, yeah, I think like both can be true though. It can still be a good read and not quite hit that scare scale. But I think speaking of like historical fictions, I read The Silent Companions by Laura Purcell, which I consulted many a book TikTok lists of like scariest books because, I don't know if anyone's heard me talk about this before, but I've been very underwhelmed by books I've read in the past when I'm trying to find a scary read, something that like will really like put the fear into me, that spooky nighttime feeling that I think horror movies do very well, but I've not been able to like elicit the same feeling from a book. So
I think I told you that I don't think they exist.
No, I'm not sure. I'm not sure it can.
Belle's on this mission to prove me wrong.
Mm.
But yeah, my gut feeling is they don't exist.
Well, I think because it does rely on your imagination in a way, or just like very or just like very, very well written, but then you can overwrite the like all the spooky details, and then it suddenly is less spooky. So it's like this really fine balance of writing just enough to get your imagination going and maybe have you like conjuring up some sort of spooky image in your head, but without being too explicit that kind of gets boring. Anyway, so this one was on people's lists of spookiest reads, and I thought it sounded kind of up my alley. So The Silent Companions was about Elsie, who's a newlywed, now newly widowed and pregnant, and she moves into her widow's country estate to see out the rest of her pregnancy. So her husband has died you don't really have the details, but he died at this estate in, just a really sudden, horrific death. And then for whatever reason, I think her brother decides that she's going to see out the rest of her pregnancy at this estate that she's never been to, accompanied only by her late husband's cousin, whose name is Sarah. And it's a bit of a haunted house, historical fiction, gothic sort of novel. Something definitely strange and unsettling lurks in this house. Elsie is like very underwhelmed by this very rundown manor or mansion, and there's a couple of servants there who won't really speak to her, and they're pretty slapdash with their work, and not really up to her standards. The local villagers avoid the house like a plague, so she has trouble employing staff for the house. And within the first couple of days, she discovers a locked door that no one can open in the house. And upon gaining entry, she finds an old diary from a prior occupant, as well as a strange wooden figure of a girl who bears an uncanny resemblance to Elsie herself. And so this wooden figure is sort of like a child-size, lifelike wooden cutout. They were known as the Silent Companions, and I think they originated in the Netherlands. And this is sort of in the, I think, 1600s. They were like a really popular sort of entertainment. What's it called? It's like the Queen and King would have like these almost like, I'm trying to think of it. What is it, Jen, when they have like, they've got like actors and maybe they'll be like singing and dancing.
Jester.
Yeah, kind of that sort of idea where they'd have maybe like a big show at one of these grand old houses, and it might have like different acts, and part of the decoration of this, like one of these sort of curiosities, I think that's what I'm trying to think of. One of these curiosities would be these painted people that were sort of meant to look really lifelike, so you might bump into them and sort of, I'll say, oh, beg your pardon, and then it's actually not a real person, and that was sort of like the funny thing. I know, right? And so she comes across this one that looks like bizarrely like her, and then turns out that there's like a whole lot of them, and essentially they start appearing in random places about the house. So And it seems like they're multiplying as well. So sort of more and more appear. They start to really unsettle the occupants of the house, and very, very strange things start happening. I'm going to sort of leave it there because I don't think I can say more without spoiling too much. It's a really nice dual storyline though. So from the minute that they discover the diary, you've got the dual storyline of one of the original occupants of the house in 1630-ish, talking about sort of their life, and it's building up to something. And at the same time, then you've got Elsie's account being written in her diary in the 1800s. And sort of you're getting information from, 200 years ago, which explains kind of what's happening now in the house, or explains how certain things came to be. There's no massive jump scares. It's not very gory. It's more just like this sense of foreboding and suspense as these storylines sort of build up to a bit of a head. I guess it's more probably haunted house, supernatural. There is something that lives in the house that seems to move these wooden characters around. And so it sort of is come to life through them. Yeah, so whilst like the house itself isn't this spooky thing, like it's more about the contents of the house. It is set in like a really old, dusty house where, well, I guess that's what Elsie's experiencing, this really rundown house with this sort of decrepit nursery in it and things falling apart. But then you're sort of jumping back in time to when it was like a great manor and the original occupants are preparing for a visit from the king and queen. And so then, it's all the grandeur and like beautiful gardens and everything of that time, and then comparing it to how it's sort of fallen apart in recent years because nobody has properly lived there between the two for the last like 200 years. Where it sits on this scare scale, I feel like maybe it was like a 6 or maybe a 6. I feel like it was quite a bit of a long book. It's about 350 pages. Maybe certain bits dragged on a little bit, but it was quite spooky. And there were times when I was reading it, and I think I maybe, I was talking about trying to read only at night and only when like the atmosphere was right. I think with this one, I did have a little bit of daytime reading. And so when I got to certain bits and it was at night, I did have a few like hairs at the back of my neck stand up at certain times. And so Laura Purcell definitely did something right to have that be my reaction. But I think I just really enjoyed the story as well. It was a good book. So yeah, maybe one that I would probably give maybe 4 stars or like almost 4 stars, but not the scariest book that I've read in the lead up to this episode.
Good spooky season book. I have read quite a lot of her books. I have read that one. I really don't remember it other than the cutouts.
I looked them up.
Yeah, there's a museum in Norwich that has a
creepy.
load in the windows. They are creepy.
Mm.
Yeah, I really like her books. I've read The Corset and The Shape of Darkness, which Sarah never liked me talking about because I don't remember details from books in general, but the main detail I remember from that one is one of the family members suffering from, I think they call it Fossy Jaw, and this upsets her every time I run it up. Yeah, so it's she writes that kind of sort of gothic spooky book just with moments that you're like, oh yeah, that bit got to me. She's just written, it's about to come out, a prequel to The Silent Companion.
Oh really?
Called House of Splinters, which comes out next year.
Okay.
And I've seen people recommending that one that have managed to read it early. So yes, it's got a prequel coming out. But yeah, I think she's great, Laura Purcell. If you want like a spooky, ghosty kind of book to read, this is a good one. Historical fiction writer. Yeah, I have one more book that I'd like to talk about. I'm hoping I haven't talked about it in detail on the podcast before. I feel like I read it in the off season. Children of Paradise by Camilla Grudova, who has a short story jewelry collection out, which might be called like the Alphabet Doll or something like that. But this is about a cinema called the Paradise, which just reads like a old, decrepit cinema that's like really run down, and for nostalgic reasons I really like that, because the very small town I grew up in had, it still does, it's still there, it has a theatre that's kind of, it's not run down, but it's like, it's very old, and it was obviously mainly a theatre that then used to show films out, and we always used to sit in like the circle to watch a film. And there was a cinema in Norwich called Hollywood Cinema, if anyone's from Norwich, they'll know what I'm talking about, which is about to be knocked down. But I always loved that cinema. It was super cheap to go to. I think it used to be the Odeon back in the day, so it was huge but very underused. So you could go and sit in an absolutely huge screen and you'd be the only person there. But I loved it. But I think it was condemned. It's definitely being knocked down shortly. So yeah, there's just the nostalgia of it. I was really intrigued me anyway, but I cannot remember the protagonist's name, but she goes to work at this cinema and finds that the staff there are all a bit odd, very cliquey, but she finds herself like really drawn to them, even though at first she's like, I don't want to hang out with those weirdos. She gets very drawn to them and wants to be like in on their gang, and eventually she does manage to like be taken into the fold of the Paradise Cinemas staff, and they do shut-ins. They shut in themselves at night and they watch the films they want to watch, and you know, they're like this very close-knit kind of club of misfits, I guess, that work at the Paradise. But the main plot of the story is that a big corporate cinema is going to take over the Paradise, and it descends into this sort of tense group dynamic where things start to splinter and fracture, and it gets more and more violent as the book goes on, and weirder things start happening between the staff members until it kind of culminates in something fairly catastrophic happening and the cinema being shut down. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. I think it's her debut, but like I said, she's got a short story collection that's, I think maybe Fitzcarraldo published it, so she's quite renowned for her writing. Yeah, I just thought it has that really unnerving, creepy atmosphere. I don't know if it's, I'm trying to see if it is categorized as horror.
Is it gory? Like, is it, or is it just got one of those, like, the spooky psychological, like, you know, like the nature of human sort of type, like what people can do? Is that is spooky?
Yes. Yeah, that kind of
violence,
descent into violence that can happen between humans. I don't know if it's overly gory. There's definitely violence in it. Do not take my word on whether it's like particularly gory or not. I cannot remember. It could well be, and I just won't remember that detail, but it's definitely violent, and it culminates in a very violent act at the end of it. Yeah, I loved it. I think I wished we were like recording at the time so I could have spoken about it. I'm just trying to see if it is.
I'm kind of thinking, is it like the part, you know, like the ending of A Secret History, you know, like is it that sort of thing, like where it's like this group dynamic, you know how in the end of The Secret History, sort of the start but also the end, where you find out what happened for one of them to have been killed, and it's sort of like this fever, like this I think the group they all kind of have secrets, and you know, one of the things they do is they like sweep the cinema after a film's been shown, and they collect all the drugs that they find, and then that's what they do in the evenings, is watch films and take drugs. So it, like, the power dynamic starts shifting. Like, yeah, it's, what is that book about the kids on the island that start killing each other? Oh yeah,
that classic.
I'm literally looking it up.
I know, my brain fog is horrendous.
Lord of the Flies.
Yes, it gets very Lord of the Flies towards the end. Yeah, and part of that is the pressure of a corporate trying to take over,
Mm.
and like a new manager being brought in and shutting down some of the stuff that they are doing. Yeah, I thought it was great. I'm still trying to find a bloody story graph to see if it, I bet it's not categorized as horror.
Oh, by the way, the House of Splinters has actually come out this year.
Ah, okay.
I can't believe I didn't know that. I would have liked to. Oh, well, that'll just go on my TBR. Came out on the 9th of October. I might put that on hold at the library, actually.
Ready for spooky season.
Yeah.
Children of Paradise is carried as horror on the story graph. Just found it. So yeah, that would be my top recommendation for what I've read.
So, okay, I'm going to talk about the spook, my winner, I think, for the spookiest book that I've read.
Yeah.
I talked about this book, I think, like last season. I started it at the start of this year. And for whatever reason, I put it down after a few chapters. But I am very, very glad I picked it up again because it absolutely delivered. I remembered that on the front cover it has one of these, like author blurbs. It's by like a newspaper, and it says Daisy Johnson is a demon offspring of Shirley Jackson and Stephen King. And my God, were they right? It was fantastic. So the premise for the book is that there is a haunted land where I think there was a witch who was killed, or a lady who was accused of being a witch was killed on this land, and a hotel is built after much struggle. So there's like a few chapters of talking about, the people who built the hotel, and it was basically like a cursed project. They had this, it was sort of like a swampland, and they couldn't get rid of any of the water. And then I think the workers were camping on the ground, and they were sort of being haunted by a woman who would come out of the water. And so like from the very get-go, the land is haunted, and then the hotel, which is finally built there, is haunted. And each chapter is like a short story and takes us through time from, that original lady to the hotel finally being built, and then through sort of history to, I guess, modern day where the hotel's sort of now abandoned. So each chapter is beautiful in the way that it's like a short story, and that it just sort of drops you into a situation, and you're not really sure who the character is that they're writing about until halfway through the chapter or what's happening. And it's just like a really, really quick glance into their experience at the hotel, their life there. And as it builds up, it's sort of halfway through the book, you realize that you're reading about, like, some of the chapters are connected. Like you're reading about somebody who maybe they appeared in an original chapter as a child, and now they're an adult going back to the hotel. And it's incredibly clever. And yeah, the moment that you realize the stories are linked, like that in itself was really creepy, and sort of just filled me with dread as things that happened in those earlier chapters sort of became even spookier, and the dread builds. And then the last few chapters really, really got me good. I was home alone when I finished it, and I was so spooked. I was so scared. Like the writing is beautiful in that way that nothing was overdone, no word was wasted. It was just enough to build up these like kind of disgusting, spooky images in your head, and then like that'd be the end of one of the short story, and you'd be onto something else. And I feel like maybe like the last chapter, the last story wasn't even the scariest. I feel like it was just maybe like the third last chapter, I think, really got me. And then I was like not consoled at all by like the last couple. And I usually have, it's probably TMI, but I usually have like a dark shower at night to like wind down from my day after work or whatever. And I had to keep all the lights on in the shower. I went to like run the water, and I was like, lit my candles, ran the water, and then I was like, nope, full lights on. I was like, I'm going to get really spooked in the shower. It's going to be one of those showers where you can't close your eyes, you know, when you're like, I can't close my eyes because I'm going to open them and someone's going to be standing right there.
That's what you want. That's what you're looking for.
That was exactly what I've been asking for. And so it really it got me really good. And yeah, so Daisy Johnson, I have her other books. I haven't read them, but I just feel like this has got to be her best work. I know that she was shortlisted, was she, or longlisted for a Booker for Everything Under, which I've got on my desk at the moment. Yeah, I'm almost a little bit reluctant to read anything else that she's written because I know that it won't be as spooky as this, because the other ones, Everything Under and Sisters by Daisy Johnson, they don't sound like they're meant to be written as horror in the way that this one was. Yeah, would highly, highly recommend it. Definitely almost one of those books you could read in one sitting, as long as you start in the afternoon and it sort of is definitely going to be finishing in the dark. I would highly recommend it.
Yeah, I have something to add about the hotel. I think we talked about this previously as well. This was like a BBC Radio 4, not adaptation. I think they literally read the book, and each chapter was obviously one of the stories from the book. However, I've gone on to the BBC website and they only seem to start from episode 7, which is weird. So I don't know if they're like now expiring, but they're there from chapter 7 onwards, which seems a bit silly, but it gives me the feeling that maybe they're expiring like episode by episode.
Yeah, it says this collection was originally written for Radio 4.
Oh, there you go then. It must have been on the radio first.
Yeah.
I'm surprised they've not got it all on there. It starts from chapter 7, Conference, if that makes sense in the book.
Okay. Upcoming.
TBR.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to quickly talk about what is next up on our hunt for scary horror. I have just started, and again, like you, I wanted to have read this before we spoke. I have just picked up Play Nice by Rachel Harrison. I don't know if you've seen this pop up on a list that you're reading. It's getting very good reviews.
No.
This Rachel Harrison wrote Cackle, which I loved last year. I haven't read any of her other stuff. I think she's written like vampire horror. I think that was called So Thirsty. She has one called Black Sheep. I don't know what genre that might be in. What else has she done? Or maybe Such Sharp Teeth might be a vampire novel. Yeah, so she's like on her 6th book now, which is Play Nice. And this is a haunted house story. We follow Cleo, who I haven't got that far into it, but I think she's like an influencer who grew up in a haunted house, or more accurately, her mum said it was a possessed house. And her parents divorced, and her mum wrote this book about this house. But I think the writing of that book and her behaviour towards this house meant that the dad got sole custody of the kids. And the story starts with Cleo finding out that her mum has died, and I think she's going to inherit this house and go back to it. And she sees it as a social media influencer opportunity that she's going to do up the house and use it for content. But I think she's going to read her mum's book that she wrote about it, and then I'm assuming all sorts of spooky goings on are going to happen. In terms of how scary I think it's going to be, if I go by Cackle, I think there's going to be moments that are scary. I don't think it's going to be like a super scary book. I reckon it'll be a 5 or a 6 on the spook factor. But I've been wanting to read more of this stuff for a while, so I thought, why not? This is a new one. I don't know when it came out. Pretty recently. Yeah, and it's getting really good reviews. So I'm looking forward to getting stuck into that one.
That sounds good. I think one that's on my TBR in that same genre of a haunted house is one called The September House. Have you heard of that? It came out a few years ago, 2023. It says a woman is determined to stay in her dream home even after it becomes a haunted nightmare. In this compulsively readable, twisty and layered debut novel. It came up on a few lists I looked at as like the, haunted house book. So that one's on my TBR. Again, unsure. Sometimes it's just like a little bit unclear with these big popular books whether it's actually going to be spooky or not.
Yeah, I never know with horror. I've got a thought. I'm just going to have to try and stop this screaming again.
Yep,
like, Ben,
go for
get
it.
a handle on your children, please.
Yeah, take them outside. Yeah, okay. So I think this one might not be super spooky. It seems like maybe even it might be a bit like satirical of the haunted house genre, but we'll see. It says one of a little storygraph description has written, when Margaret and her husband Hal bought the large Victorian house on Hawthorne Street for sale at a surprisingly reasonable price, they couldn't believe they finally had a home of their own. Then they discover the hauntings. Every September, the walls drip blood. The ghosts of former inhabitants appear, and all of them are terrified of something that lurks in the basement. Most people would flee. Margaret is not most people. Margaret is staying. It's her house, but after 4 years, Hal can't take it anymore, and he leaves abruptly. Now he's not returning calls, and their daughter Catherine, who knows nothing about the hauntings, arrives intent on looking for her missing father. To make things worse, September is just around the corner, and with every attempt Margaret and Catherine make at finding Hal, the hauntings grow more and more harrowing, because there are some secrets the house needs to keep. It has a 4-star rating on Storygraph, so we'll see. But yeah, I was just saying it might be a bit like a satirical of a haunted house sort of novel. And I think someone was talking about it, was saying it was almost funny in the way that like the mum's trying to keep some of the hauntings like hidden from her daughter who doesn't know anything about the house, and it's like the walls are bleeding and like she's trying to cover it up. And yeah, but either way, I think I look forward to reading that. That's definitely on my TBR. Do you have any other spooky ones?
I've just got one that's a new release, and I included it in our like new releases for October post, called Itch by Gemma Amor. The cover's like an eye. It's like bright purple and has what looks like little yellow ants like crawling around this eye. This is about Josie, who I don't know the reasons why she's had to move back home, but she's had to move back home to like a village in the Forest of Dean, and she stumbles across a dead body in the woods that's covered in ants. And I think that incident brings up issues from her past and gets her into like delving into what might have happened to this girl. I think it's going to be quite a visceral body horror type book, because the blurb sort of describes how, you know, she's getting consumed by insects and like, are they going to get her next type thing. Yeah, it does sound kind of gross, but the main thing that hooked me in on it was the description of it. It says how it's wrapped in folklore and an age-old mystery set in the Forest of Dean, and it coincides with the village festival that they're having. So it's sounding like I could just imagine like some like I don't know, Morris dancing. I'm trying to think of like old school, like festival, like pagan type festivals that
in the middle of the forest.
Still have in the UK, in the middle of the forest
at night. There's like a big fire going, and like
I love it.
Yeah.
That was the hook for me. I'm like, I kind of love all that like pagan tradition type stuff that we have in this country. Yeah, it's giving like midsummer vibes. Oh, that's a very sunny film. I imagine this being in the forest, like you say, in the dark with fires and stuff. Yeah, definitely. So yeah, that's one that I have requested that the library buy, and they've agreed to. So I'm first in line when that arrives. Yeah, it's exciting. I love it when the library do that. They agree with me that it's worth buying. I'm like, okay, thanks.
That sounds great. I'm going to add that to my list as well. Oh, I do like the cover. It's it's like
it's very bright, like very current, but then sinister.
It's got that old school horror movie sort of like zoom up of an eye. That's
Yeah, an eyeball.
It's great. Another one on my list is, which I've had for I've owned for a little while, but I haven't got around to reading it yet. A Sunny Place for Shady People by Mariana Enriquez. Yeah, so it's 12 of her short stories, which heavily focus on social ills and real life horror.
Have you read her stuff before?
I actually haven't. You've read, is it like The Perils of Smoking in Bed? Is that one of them? Or
I've not read that one. I think I've read Things We Lost in the Fire, it might be called.
Yeah.
But it's a short story collection I recommend all the time because her stuff's genuinely quite scary. It's very political and social issues. But yeah, some stuff's really like stuck in my head from her short stories.
I do like spooky short stories. I'm reading.
Tend to be scarier.
Yeah, and I think that's what was so perfect about The Hotel, because it was like a novel made up of short stories that all linked back in that like really clever way.
They could be really tight, can't they?
Didn't overdo anything, and they were all quite different in sort of what sort of haunting was happening as well. So they did feel quite separate, and then they were really of their time as well. Like some of them were quite old worldy sort of haunting, and then some of them was like, yeah, they were great. Anyway, I'm reading at the moment, I've got a couple more stories left. Celia Fremlin's republished short story collection called Don't Go to Sleep in the Dark. And it's from the late 70s. She's a British writer. She wrote this, I think, in her late 50s. And they're all short stories that are all very like focused on the domestic sort of marriages, affairs, motherhood, children, and all quite sort of plausible. Whilst there's some sort of supernatural elements to them, yeah, they all seem like they actually could happen or could be stories that somebody's telling you about their life. Yeah, so that's fantastic. If you also like a spooky, scary story, it's been nice. It's just been sitting next to my bed for a couple of months, and every now and then I'll pick it up and just read like one or two short stories. And for example, like they've got a haunted babysitter, a teenage girl on the first night that her parents have left her alone, like starts getting inundated with like phone calls, and then someone unannounced appears at the front door. There's a little boy who's...
When was that written?
In the late 70s. It's just been republished. It's got a very cool cover that's bright orange. It's got a green skeleton hand on it.
Yeah,
but I was just
that babysitter story sounds really familiar. When I've definitely seen films like that, so I'm just wondering if it influenced some fairly well-known like horror tropes.
Yeah, it might have. There's one as well that's very creepy. That's about a mother and her little boys telling her that he has angels visit him at night, and then she becomes like aware that he thinks angels have beaks, like there's some sort of beaked creatures visiting him in the night, which is, yeah, it's spooky. Quick fire round.
Yeah, and we'll try and do this pretty quick fire. I'm just trying to open that. It did make me realise that there's lots of genres that I need to like delve into, because some of these I could see that some of them you can answer either, so it's interesting. I think we should read out the ones that maybe we don't have anything to contribute to, and people can make suggestions for us to read if you want to get into some of those.
Well, I didn't have any for folk horror. I think I actually like changed that to supernatural horror because that wasn't on the list. Like,
okay.
Originally. So folk horror. Well, your itch book might be.
Yeah, I mean that. I feel like that's gonna cover it at some point. I don't think I've read anything else that was not as folk horror. Yeah, definitely want to. There must be loads. There's certainly loads of horror films that you can watch that are folk horror. So there must be loads of books. Shall we run through these? So we've done. Oh, we've covered short stories. That's fine.
Yeah,
haunted houses.
I do have to say this is one of my favourites. I think like I've been drawn to haunted houses since I was little. It's one of those like it's always come up in, maybe it's like the movies you're allowed to watch as like a kid that were a little bit spooky, or like the weird sort of shows.
Yeah.
They always featured like spooky houses. But yeah, so what comes to my mind instantly is Shirley Jackson. We've always lived in the castle and the Haunting of Hill House, the absolute icon that she is. And yeah, I feel like she would be, you know, a lot of things are now like would be based off her writing and her description of sort of spooky children and spooky houses.
She's the queen of spooky house, isn't she? I'd pop down The Little Stranger by Sarah Waters. That's a really good spooky house book.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously I'm about to read one.
Yeah, well, the Silent Companions.
Play Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Silent Companions, spooky house book. Yeah, there's loads of spooky house books. And I had written down, film-wise, the film that pops into my head is The Others, which is, very good spooky house.
Oh, you know what another spooky house one movie was? Oh, no, I have to... Oh, my gosh, I'm not going to be able to think of it now.
It's when you write something totally random into Google.
Yeah, it's literally me going spooky house. It's like she's like a Ghostbuster sort of lady. Like it's set... Oh, I don't know when it'd be set. Maybe like the 1900s. She like disproves ghosts. You know, it's a time when people were like preying on people who had lost family members in the war, and so they would do like medium sort of stuff, and she would go and like, you know, expose them as being all just like money traps and scams basically. And she is written to by a school, a boys' school out in the country, because they have a haunting going on. Like all the boys are terrified and they think that there's a ghost haunting the school.
So boarding school, The Awakening.
Yes, that's it. The Awakening.
The Awakening.
Let me just check.
There you go.
There we go. Yep. So here we go. It's all refers to. No, that's a novel. It is 2011 film, The Awakening.
Yes, I like Rebecca Hall though.
Yeah, I would say don't read too much stuff, because it's a really good twist. But essentially, she's sent to a boys' boarding school to try and, you know, find whoever's pretending to be a ghost and scaring all the children. Most of the children have gone home for the holidays, and she's been tasked with like clearing the school of a ghost before all the boys come back. And yeah, it's very much like her creeping around with a lantern, setting up sort of traps, like to find a person, you know, like whoever's running around setting up like spooky things. And yeah, it's her sort of chasing children through a house and sort of slamming doors, and spooky little dollhouse like appears with like little her and a little like, you know, it's perfect. Like it's perfect. Yeah. It's a bit of like a slow burn, but it's just got like a really good twist at the end. So I would say that's definitely a good haunted house book, good for sure.
Next genre, this is the one that made me think, I really haven't read very much of this, I don't think, is body horror. Now, I've watched loads of body horror films, but I kind of flipped it a little bit, because I have read a lot of like, I've labelled them like the troubled woman trope. I was thinking of like NIghtbitch and Motherthing and Woman Eating, which all have that like slightly grotesque storyline to them. Again, I don't know if they would be labelled as horror. I think they are. They're quite subtle. They're like literary fiction with... I don't think you'd want somebody to read them by accident, not knowing what the content was like. So yeah, those are my suggestions for body horror.
I thought of Motherthing, but I couldn't think of anything else. And just thinking of the scene where like they're eating the meat, and I feel like it's
like that visceral, gross stuff that humans do.
Yeah.
Yeah, those three books I thought fit into that. I recently watched The Substance with Demi Moore in, which is a brilliant, brilliant body horror film. She's trying to stay young, essentially, and gets this medicine that she has to inject. Yeah, it's brilliant. I won't give any more of the story away. That's a great body horror film. Quite grotesque, so just a little content warning there, but it's great.
Yeah, it's probably why I don't have a lot to... Because I don't like a lot of the gory, spooky movies. they don't really do it for me. Like the Saw, the ones that rely on just like shock
Like
value.
trauma.
Yeah.
Trauma porn.
Yeah. So
yeah,
it makes
I'd say the substance isn't that.
Okay.
You probably would quite like the substance. Yeah, it's a really good take on trying to cling on to youth.
Yeah.
It's good.
Right. The next is sci-fi horror. And
now you wrote the same one I was going to write, so
there we go.
I'll let you share.
Yeah, so if you like your spooky with a side of sci-fi, I had thought of Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer. There is a Bookcast episode, I believe, where you guys read. Did you read and then watch?
Me and Chris read it.
Yeah.
Yes, we compared the film with
and
the book.
Yeah.
So
it's a very atmospheric sci-fi horror novel following a team of 4 women scientists. I think there's like a psychologist, I'm gonna forget the rest of it. I think like a biologist. 4 women
the biologist,
the main one.
The main character might be the biologist.
I feel like there's what's a study of like societies and population, sort of sociologists or something.
Sociologist,
maybe. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, 4 female scientists are sent out into a government-managed, uninhabited location called Area X to study and survey the strange land and ecosystems. And I think they are mission number 12. And so they've sent people before, and sometimes people don't come back, or people come back and they don't have any recollection of either what they've done there or seen there or how they got back. And so they've sort of been sent in there. It's unclear how they're going to get back, but they are tasked with just like gathering information. And they come across this strange tunnel, or sort of, it's described as a tower. It's like an inverted tower. And there's a strange sort
writing,
of
isn't it, on the wall?
Yeah, writing that's made of like moss or some sort of growth, like some
like
sort
a
of
fungus,
new,
isn't it?
Yeah, and they start walking down the tunnel and trying to decipher what the writing on the wall says. And I sort of leave it there because I think it's one of those novels that you don't get the whole picture, you don't get all the answers, you don't get, like it's not really resolved even at the end. And it is the first of a series. I've not read the rest of them.
I keep meaning to read the rest.
But yeah, no, that was
love the first one.
Truly unsettling. Yeah, so if you like that
the book, the film's good as well. The film is, I'd say the book is like unsettling, makes you feel very uncomfortable, and like all that tension builds the whole time. I'd say the film is more straight up horror.
Mm-hmm.
I can vaguely remember Chris saying he struggled with watching some bits of the film. Yeah, so the film is great as well. I really enjoyed it.
And you've also put down like classics
Gothic.
classics like Alien as well.
Oh so that film, yeah, definitely. Alien's a great film. Gothic. You've got one for Gothic.
Yeah, I've got one. I've read
loads of Gothic,
but
I was just like completely kind of blanking on what I'd recommend. So I'll let you go with yours.
Yeah. I've just read, it's a new release called Mayra by Nikki Gonzalez, and it's a sort of southern Gothic, it was described as anyway, set against the Florida swamplands, about a girl called Ingrid who's invited away for the weekend out of the blue by sort of a long lost friend from her teenage years called Mayra. And she finds herself in this sort of ramshackle house surrounded by dense swampland, just sort of dense trees with alligators and crocodiles, or whichever of the two that you have in southern swampland, and snakes, and there's no cell service. And to make things worse, she arrives and she realizes that Mayra's forgot to mention that her new boyfriend is also joining them on the girls' weekend. And so she's sort of stuck in this strange house where you sort of see it coming before it happens, like before she does, but where sort of reality and time seem to sort of morph around them, and they discover more and more secrets. This bizarre house that seems to have endless rooms, and it's quite a slow build of sort of unease and tension. I guess it's a little bit like little bit sci-fi in the way that it's sort of, they seem to be in like a time vortex essentially. And yeah, so it does a really good job of building up this sort of humid sort of Florida swampland spooky sort of house imagery. But I think for me personally, it was like a little bit too much of a slow burn, but I could see what they were trying to do with the ending. And yeah, it was good. It was good. It was a nice sort of quick read. It wasn't massive. I think about 200 pages. And yeah, it sort of talks a lot about sort of female friendships and memory and yeah, I don't know. It was pretty good.
Yeah, that sounds good.
The other one I put down was Victorian Psycho. Did you end up reading this?
Yes, I haven't. It's still in my pile next to me here to get to.
Okay. I won't spoil it, but that was on my list as well. So I read that a couple of weeks ago. That one is Victorian Psycho.
Is it violent?
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is, but
I assumed it would be.
I don't know why. It doesn't come across as like confronting in a book compared to on film. But yeah, so Victorian Psycho by Virginia Fieto. It is about a Victorian governess who moves into a manor, an estate, to look after the children of this couple, and there's something very wrong with her. She's very, very dark and spooky. I think it seems like she's maybe lied, her way through her early adulthood to get to be a governess. And I think her mum was similarly sort of spooky and dark and managed to sort of marry a vicar or some sort of, town's religious man. And so she grew up in like a church, in a graveyard, sort of spooky church in like a very poor town. And somehow she sort of got her way into being a governess for like a very wealthy family. And essentially just chaos and bloody gore ensures. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Like next to me, I was just reading who's done the like author blurbs on the back. So Kirsty Logan is on there, a gleeful, gory pastiche shot through with pitch black humour. Paul Tremblay, riotous, devilishly clever and deliciously appalling, and Ainslie Hogarth, who wrote Motherthing, on there. Relentlessly moody in the best possible way, atmospheric, funny, bloody as hell.
It's quite satirical, I think, of just that, unhinged woman. Again, it could be a bit of body horror, this one as well, but just unhinged female and lots of blood and guts.
I'm looking forward to reading it. Did you want to do supernatural horror?
Yeah.
There's Belle's favourite.
That is, I think, close second would be haunted houses, but definitely like a spooky ghost story. I'm reading one at the moment. The one that I haven't quite finished is called Incidents Around the House by Josh Melaman, and it is...
Did he write Bird?
Yes, Bird Box.
Bird Box?
He did.
Yeah, I read that one.
So it's Incidents Around the House is a chilling horror novel about a haunting told from the perspective of a young girl, and it's quite funny, Jen. I initially thought, one of them at least I should get as an audiobook, and just to maximize my spooky book consumption in the lead up to this. And so I've got this one, and the actor's like putting on a child's voice, and I listened to about 5 seconds of it, and I was like, absolutely not. Like,
can't do.
I'm gonna have to send
refund,
it to you,
please.
and straight away. Luckily it was just a Libby one, but I was like, this is awful.
I don't know why they do that.
Like it was like an adult, definitely an adult, putting on like a child twangy American accent, like pretending to be like a 5-year-old child as well, not like an older child. Like
no, that's so irritating.
Child. I was like, absolutely not, cannot.
Good.
And Lucky I Didn't Persist. The whole thing's from a child's point of view. Like, and it's like her calling her, like, this, she's sort of got a mummy and a daddo. Like, it's about her mum and her dad.
Oh no, I couldn't listen to that.
Awful.
That would drive me mad.
Anyway, so it's written from the perspective of this young girl, and her whole family ends up being targeted by an entity, a demon, something that she calls the other mummy. And they've done very well in this to write this, like, this character is like very, very unsettling and spooky. Like, the young girl, it starts off with her sort of just seeing this other mummy who lives in her cupboard and would come out and talk to her at night, and it sort of starts off as a friendship. And then the other mummy wants to sort of reincarnate, like it wants to come into her body, and so it just keeps asking her whether or not, like, she can come into this little girl's heart, and the little girl sort of saying no and no, 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 and this entity sort of becomes more and more aggressive and so that's where the book sort of starts as like this has become a bit of a problem, because
this is a problem.
This character that she thought initially was like her friend is like very, very scary. She seems to have like quite a cool mum and dad who like are throwing lots of parties at their house. And one evening, the other mummy makes like an appearance, and like someone at the party sees this creature, like who's like described as being as like tall as the ceiling, and freaks out, and sort of then suddenly they're being like, all their friends kind of abandon them. They try to go over to a friend's house to sort of hide away, and they get kicked out because suddenly they're also seeing this creature. So it's like attached to them, and they're like this couple and their young daughter, and they have to work out pretty much sort of by themselves how they're going to get rid of it. And I really liked it as a premise. There's a part in the book where they're sort of reflecting on, like, like media is just filled with these stories like this, like these, we all sort of read and watch movies about like spooky ghosts and demons and things, but no one actually is prepared for what you do if that happens to you. Like at some stage they're like calling the police and the police are like
help,
fobbing them off, and then they're like looking up like occultists, and like they can't get anyone to like believe them that's actually happening. They start trying to like set up video cameras, and then like certain occultists are like, no, I don't believe video footage, it's ridiculous. They get like guard dogs, like they seem to like hire like guard dogs to like come to protect their house, and all that does is just sort of add like barking dogs to like the chaos of this creature coming out of like sort of their pantry. And quite chaotic.
That sounds quite good.
Very good, very spooky, very good imagery, interesting, being written from like a young girl's point of view. And I'm sort of at the end of the book where they're trying to come up with like a solution. They have to work out how to get rid of this.
A plan.
And it's quite like I'm like interested to see how it goes, because it's like they've definitely come up with a plan, and it's like quite left of field, I think, as well. So
okay.
That one's called
that sounds really good.
Incidents Around the House. Shall
we end with some TV movies quickly?
Yeah, sure.
I can see what you've been watching lately on this list. Go on, share the TV you've been watching. Okay. I'm intrigued because this is on my watch list, and I'll tell you why when you share.
Okay, so I have been watching on Netflix the new installment of their like monster series. They had the.
Have you watched the others?
Yeah, who was the guy that ate men?
Oh, it's something Dharma.
Yeah, can't remember what. Yeah,
can't remember his first name.
Is it Ted? No, Ted Bundy.
You're mixing your serial killers up.
Yeah.
Oh
Dharma.
my god.
So the Dharma one was like very, again, grotesque.
I wondered if you'd. That's why I asked if. Yeah, that's why I asked if you'd watched it, because I feel like I haven't started watching this new series, so I feel like it's going to be like that first.
It's worse.
Series.
It's worse, kind of.
Oh god,
it's kind of.
This is why I haven't got into it yet.
Yeah, because that was the scenes in that first monster where like the poor neighbor, had been saying all along that like
hear through the walls.
Yeah, and had been smelling the smells coming through of him like cooking the meat and stuff, and had been trying to like tell people all along that like something was going on and that he wasn't right, and then to find that out in the end that had been happening next door to you.
What he'd been doing.
Yeah. This was equally
these
horrifying,
that
actually.
first series is not. Yeah, maybe this season and We'll talk about the middle one quickly in a minute, but I feel like these 2 seasons are probably not. My sister won't watch them. That's probably an indication because she watches so much horror. She listens to true crime podcasts. She can't bring herself to watch.
No, and it is.
These particular seasons.
I did read a couple of articles about how, you know, like I read articles and actually decided not to watch it, and then I didn't have anything to watch, and I ended up watching it.
Dead.
Yeah, but just about like how this is, you know, it is sort of like, you know, shining the light on the wrong sort of side of this story. But yeah, so it's the Ed Gein story, and it's got a lot of body horror and like grotesque imagery and sort of corpses, and
because this serial killer, he influenced the Silence of the Lambs. If you've seen the Silence of the Lambs, the serial killer in that is influenced by Ed. Yeah, so I don't know if we need to go into the details because it is really disgusting.
No, I don't think we do.
But that's your gauge.
And
if you've
Psycho
seen the Silence
as well.
Of the Lambs.
So they talk quite a lot. That's sort of in the show as well. How that Alfred Hitchcock was inspired by like the real crime photos from this to create Psycho, and how that sort of influenced his life and like his family's life, and the actor who played Psycho's life. And so it sort of does extend from the original story. I don't know if I would recommend it.
Better headspace.
I don't know if I would watch it, Jen. I don't know if you need it. I don't think you need it.
Don't know if I need it in my life. It's interesting because I saw you written it down, and I really liked the second season. So
same. I thought we were going in
Eric and Lyle Menendez
direction.
Season.
Yep.
Yeah, that season, a lot of people, if you get online and get into forums where people are talking about it, a lot of people were quite upset about how the brothers, so these were 2 brothers that killed their parents, essentially, and they're still in prison for it. But again, it is a difficult watch because they talk about sexual abuse. So their whole defense was that they were being sexually abused by the father, and they were in fear for their lives. And I really liked that season, how people were very upset by it, because what it did was it showed like both sides of the story. Like 1 minute you'd see a scene that was really upsetting because they're very convincingly talking about the sexual abuse that they've suffered, and then on the other hand you'd see a scene where like Lyle Menendez is in prison, like reading this book about how you might accuse somebody of having sexually abused you when you were a child and how that creates trauma in life. And I think some people have taken it very literally. They're like, no, well, that didn't happen. Why are they showing that? Whereas I saw it more as, we don't know whether they're telling the truth or not. Nobody does. And therefore they're going to show both sides of the story. And I just thought it's a really good season. And if you don't want like a super sinister, grotesque serial killer type story, that one I felt was way more like psychological, and it's difficult to watch some of the sexual abuse stuff play out.
Yeah,
it plays
for sure.
out in court rather than, or in their discussions with their lawyers, doesn't it? Rather than like, you don't see those scenes happening necessarily. It's all alluded to. But that, I'd say, was a much better season. I got to the end of it, I was like, oh, that was really good compared to the first one, which just was kind of traumatizing. But it sounds like they've gone for
they've flipped right back to
one again.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Horrible serial killer.
Yeah, we'll leave that one.
Yeah, do we recommend it? I don't know. If you're into it, if you're into your true crime, maybe.
Yeah.
Or maybe that was a warning not to watch some of those. I have got some films. I went through my list of stuff that I've watched recently. And interestingly, all the stuff that I've really enjoyed are like new releases.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw The Long Walk, which is, I read the book by Stephen King, writing under a pseudonym, Richard Bachman, years ago, like probably 20 years ago or something. And this is about, again, this sounds really horrible. This is set in like a dystopian world where the Long Walk happens every year, and it's a group of teenage boys. I feel like maybe in the film they might be adults as well, but in the book I feel like they might be adults as well, but maybe they're in children, but in the film they're teenage boys, and they compete in this long walk, and essentially the only person left is the winner, and they keep walking until there's one of them left. an extreme version of the Hunger Games. I don't know, an adult version of the Hunger Games, let's say. So it plays out how you think it might play out. But if you are a fan of Stephen King or like the movie adaptations that have come out from his work, he's really good at writing relationships between teenage boys. Stand By Me was based on one of his books, and he's just really good at it. So it's just this lovely, even though they're dropping like flies and you get to know them, and some of it's really sad because you've got to know this character and then they die in whatever way they might die. It's a great film. I really loved it, which sounds a horrible thing to say because everyone's dying, but the friendship dynamics in it are really, really good. So I would highly recommend that one. I watched Weapons. Have you heard this one being talked about?
I've heard about it. I haven't seen it. It's about the really teacher, good. Isn't it? Whose whole class disappears.
Basically, all her class disappear overnight. And yeah, it's how that plays out. And you see her perspective. You see and it's got this really interesting timeline. So you start with her story, and it'll show what happened in her timeline. And then as the film goes on, someone else's timeline comes into play. And sometimes I find films or books like that repeating the same thing are just a bit tedious, but it doesn't really work like that. It's more and more puzzle pieces come in as the different characters' stories play out. It's very good. I really enjoyed it. And then the only other one maybe I'll mention is, I'm gonna have to find the date of this. Me and my sister watched an adaptation of Alice in Wonderland. Now it's just called Alice. Fine. She just looks like a nice little girl, like Alice in Wonderland, looking through the shrunken door. A film by, I'm going to butcher this person's name, but Jan Zvan. I tell you who will message me after this episode is Patrick to tell me how I pronounce this. I love him. Zvan Kmaya. Patrick, you need to message me, please, on Instagram and let me know how I was supposed to pronounce that. But it's just this really, creepy. It's PG, right? But if I'd put this on for my kids, I think they just wouldn't have slept because it's this really creepy stop motion adaptation of Alice in Wonderland. But all the characters in it look really sinister, and they're doing slightly offbeat thing. I mean, the book, and the Disney film, they're all a bit offbeat and like someone was on drugs when they wrote it. Yeah, but with an extra sort of threatening atmosphere. It's really, really good. Me and my sister both loved it. And as you can see, we both then went and bought a physical copy of it. So yeah, it's just called Alice.
It's sort of the thing
in the 90s.
It would have been one of the things that your parents didn't realise, and they put it on for you, and then traumatised you.
Literally give you nightmares. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And that will have happened to some 80s children having watched this. Yeah, so I'm going to say that's my final recommendation. A Czech language. Yeah, in its original Czech language.
Oh, okay.
There you go. That's my recommendation if you just want to watch something slightly offbeat and unnerving. It's brilliant.
Okay.
Are we done? That was epic. We've been recording for ages. It's going to be an epic bumper spooky episode for everybody. Thank you everybody for listening. I think we're already going to start prepping for next year's Halloween spooky episode. Hopefully we can report back through the year on how we're getting on. But yeah, thank you for listening. As always, there's loads of ways you can get in touch, and please tell us if you've read any good horror books recently. You can email us where we the bookcastclub@outlook.com. We are on Instagram where we're at Bookcast Club, so please do messages on there. You can sign up to our newsletter, which will be in the show notes. And we haven't mentioned Patreon today, but we do have a Patreon that you can sign up to listen to our bonus episodes and get bonus content. But I think that's it. We're going to let Belle go to bed, not have nightmares, and speak to you all very soon.
I don't know. After talking about Ed Gein, I think I've just
oh no,
sleep
right
now.
She's going to be awake all night.